Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Thursday, 5th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. Canada is currently battling numerous wildfires, resulting in significant air quality degradation across several U.S. states, including New York, New Jersey, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Maine, where air quality alerts have been issued. Turning to the Netherlands, the coalition government has collapsed, following the withdrawal of support from Geert Wilders' far-right party due to disagreements over immigration and asylum policies. Prime Minister Dick Schoof has resigned, with new elections slated for October, while the current ministers will remain in a caretaker role. In a gesture of solidarity, Queen Maxima unveiled a bell crafted from Russian weapons, which was then gifted to a church in the Czech Republic. Meanwhile, the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues, marked by escalating tensions and stalled peace negotiations. Russia has issued a warning of retaliation for Ukraine's drone attacks, stating it will respond how and when it sees fit. With President Putin reportedly communicating to President Trump that Moscow felt compelled to react to Kyiv's actions, Ukraine has allegedly conducted a drone strike that targeted 4 air bases, causing damage to as many as 20 Russian warplanes. Despite this, Russia insists that there was no damage to the Crimea Bridge following a Ukrainian attack, although Ukraine has consistently targeted the bridge since the start of Russia's military offensive in February 2022. A Russian strike in Kharkiv resulted in the death of 5 people, including a 1-year-old child, as Shahed-type drones struck apartment buildings and triggered fires, with Mayor Ihor Terekhov reporting damage to 7 apartment buildings, 2 of which were directly hit. President Zelensky condemned the Russian drone strike, accusing Moscow of attempting to prolong the conflict and urging the West to intensify sanctions and pressure on Moscow. Peace talks in Istanbul have led to agreements on prisoner exchanges, but a comprehensive ceasefire remains elusive, as Ukraine prioritizes it, while Russia seeks to address NATO expansion as the root cause of the conflict. As the war intensifies and peace talks stall, Russia reportedly lost a third of its strategic bombers. In London, the trial of 6 men accused of arson against a business supporting Ukraine's war effort has begun, with prosecutors claiming overwhelming evidence suggesting the Wagner Group planned the attack. In addition, 1 year after the death of Russian dissident Alexei Navalny, his widow launched a satellite news channel broadcasting into Russia. In the United Kingdom, Trade Secretary Jonathan Reynolds is advocating for reforms to the World Trade Organization, WTO, particularly concerning its dispute resolution system. Also in London, the trial of 6 men accused of an arson attack at an East London business supporting Ukraine's war effort against Russia has commenced. Prosecutors argue the evidence against them is, and eld quo, overwhelming, and ardi quo, alleging the Wagner Group planned the attack. Across the Atlantic, in the United States, smoke emanating from Canadian wildfires has triggered air quality alerts in 5 states: New York, New Jersey, Iowa, New Hampshire, and Maine. As Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has indicated a near consensus among NATO member states to allocate 5% of their GDP to defense. The United States also vetoed a UN Security Council resolution calling for an unspecified action. Procter & Gamble announced plans to eliminate up to 7,000 jobs, approximately 6% of its global workforce, over the next 2 years, citing tariff-related costs and anxious consumers. CFO Andre Schulten stated that these cuts are part of a restructuring program aimed at addressing near-term challenges and ensuring long-term delivery. Additionally, President Trump signed a travel ban restricting entry to the U.S. for nationals of 12 countries, reviving and expanding the travel bans from his first term, citing security concerns and visa overstays. A large Republican donor wants to buy a Russian pipeline to Germany, and the White House has entertained the idea of working with the Kremlin to supply Russian gas to Europe. China is navigating a complex web of international relations, economic hurdles, and domestic pressures. Trade negotiations with the U.S. are stalled, despite a May 12 agreement to reduce tariff rates, although President Trump and President Xi have spoken by phone amidst escalating tensions. Despite a potential tariff truce, analysts warn that China's export businesses face significant challenges. China seeks to strengthen ties with Russia, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Europe amidst its trade war with the U.S. While President Xi Jinping emphasizes strengthening ties with South Korea, China criticized Senator Rubio's remarks concerning the Tiananmen Square incident. China issued warrants for alleged Taiwanese hackers and banned business for those with pro-independence links, asserting its claim over Taiwan. Economically, China faces potential deflation due to the rise of AI, which could disrupt employment. To counter this, China integrates power-hungry data centers into its energy strategy to fuel its AI sector. Hainan Province is piloting a program to grant select corporate users access to the global internet, aiming to become a global free trade port. A plan to merge Dongfeng Motor Group Company Limited and Chongqing Chang'an Automobile Company Limited has been suspended. China has approved mass production of its first homegrown 1,000 kilowatt helicopter engine, the Ason 100. Socially, economic anxiety reportedly fuels anger among Chinese social media users towards elite Buddhist temples in China are providing refuge for endangered tree species. Turning to the United States amidst trade tensions with China, President Trump spoke with Chinese President Xi Jinping, marking their first known communication since tariffs increased. President Trump has formally barred Harvard University from enrolling international students, citing national security risks. China has pledged to safeguard the interests of its students following President Trump's ban on international enrollment at Harvard University. Regarding Taiwan, China issued warrants for alleged Taiwanese hackers and banned business for those with pro-independence links, asserting its claim over the island. Shifting to South Korea, its new leader, Lee Jae-myung, omitted mentioning China in his inauguration speech, signaling diplomatic maneuvering between China and the U.S. Chinese. President Oh emphasized China placed great importance on strengthening ties with South Korea. Meanwhile, the European Union has urged China to stop restricting the export of rare earth minerals and magnets due to concerns about an alarming situation for European industries. Globally, new research indicates that the world's poorest countries are set to pay a record $22 billion in debt repayments to China this year. OpenAI has taken down covert operations tied to China and other countries that were using its AI tools to influence opinion. A Chinese study of dinosaur feathers trapped in Burmese amber has shed new light on the evolution of flight feathers. Japan is facing a demographic crisis with a record low of 686,061 births in 2024, a 5.7% decrease from the previous year. Real wages in Japan have also declined, with a 1.8% year-on-year decrease in April. The government is considering stricter regulations for foreign residents, including tougher driver's license tests and a potential tax hike for tourists, alongside tighter measures against unpaid medical bills. Japan has also enacted a bill to penalize retaliation against whistleblowers, with penalties including imprisonment or fines. Child abuse cases reached a record high in Japan in 2024, with 2,700 victims. Japan is expected to seek tariff removal in upcoming negotiations. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba and U.S. President Donald Trump are scheduled to meet. Scientists in Japan have developed a seawater dissolvable plastic. Turning to South Korea, newly inaugurated President Lee Jae-myung has signaled his intention to pursue warmer relations with Japan. Analysts remain cautious due to his past criticisms of Tokyo and concerns about potential anti-Japan sentiment for domestic support. United Kingdom. A controversy emerged as Reform UK's Sarah Poshan advocated for a burqa ban, citing public safety and European precedents. But party chair Zia Yusuf dismissed it as conflicting with Reform UK policy. Economically, Tesla experienced a 36% drop in UK car sales in May, facing competition from Chinese brands and criticism of Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Mel Stride endorsed Kemi Badenoch as a future leader, drawing Thatcher comparisons and highlighting her potential for growth, while also emphasizing the need for politicians to carefully consider policy in the face of rapid social media developments. Ukraine-Russia conflict and international involvement amidst escalating attacks between Russia and Ukraine. Former US President Donald Trump spoke with Vladimir Putin, discussing Ukraine's drone operations targeting Russian military airfields. Trump conveyed that he didn't anticipate an immediate resolution to the conflict following the call. Simultaneously, Germany's defense minister urged increased supply of air defense systems to Ukraine, as Trump stated that without Washington's leadership, Putin is winning and global security is at risk. Vanuatu. In response to the Tate report, the Vanuatu Citizenship Office confirmed that Andrew Tate's citizenship application was approved after receiving clearances from the Financial Intelligence Unit, Interpol, and UK police. Israel continues to grapple with the aftermath of the October 7th attacks, with the Israeli military recovering the bodies of Israeli-American hostages Judy Weinstein Haggai, 70, and Gad Haggai, 72, from Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced their remains were returned after an operation in southern Gaza. Despite ongoing conflict, a U.S.-backed Israeli logistics group will reopen two Gaza Humanitarian Foundation GAF distribution centers, reversing a prior suspension prompted by IDF warnings about combat zones. The AF had previously urged Israel to enhance civilian safety measures. The United Kingdom is under growing pressure to adopt a firmer stance on Israel's Gaza operations. Labour Party leader Keir Starmer has strongly criticized Israel's recent actions as appalling and intolerable. While the UK government is reportedly considering sanctions against members of the Israeli government, it has so far resisted calls for a complete arms embargo and immediate recognition of Palestine. Adding to the pressure, independent UK MP Jeremy Corbyn introduced a bill in the House of Commons on Wednesday, June 4, 2025, seeking an independent inquiry into the UK's role in the conflict and its support for Israel. In other international developments, Russia's President Vladimir Putin has offered to mediate between Iran and the United States regarding Tehran's nuclear program, signaling a potential shift in diplomatic efforts to de-escalate tensions. New Zealand's political landscape is currently navigating some turbulence as the Prime Minister weighs potential privacy law reforms after allegations surfaced against his deputy press secretary, Michael Forbes, who resigned amid accusations of secretly recording sex workers and photographing women at a gym. No charges have been filed. Furthermore, New Zealand's Parliament witnessed unprecedented suspensions of 3 MPs: Hannah R. Wrighty, Maipi Clark, Daddy Babi Nirayapaka, and Raweri Waiti, for performing a Manori haka in protest against proposed legislation. Their suspensions were for 7 and 21 days. Adding to the complexities, New Zealand-born children of overstayers are facing undocumented status and citizenship challenges 2 decades after a change to the citizenship law. Shifting focus to the broader Pacific region, Papua New Guinea and Bougainville are set to engage in crucial independence talks. These discussions will take place at a military camp near Christchurch, New Zealand, and will be moderated by Sir Jerry Mateparae, a former New Zealand Governor-General. In climate-related news, a recent report on the Southwest Pacific region, which includes New Zealand, has highlighted shocking changes, as reported by the World Meteorological Organization's regional director. India is facing a difficult period, marked by devastating monsoon rains that triggered floods and landslides in the northeast, claiming at least 48 lives. The nation is also gearing up for its long-awaited census, which may include contentious inquiries related to caste. In Bengaluru, celebrations for the Royal Challengers Bengaluru's IPL victory turned tragic when a stampede near Chinnaswamy Stadium led to 11 deaths among the jubilant crowd. Simultaneously, India is investing heavily in the creation of its own advanced AI engine, supporting a burgeoning ecosystem of AI startups. On the diplomatic front, Shashi Tharoor is heading a cross-party delegation to the Americas in the wake of recent terror attacks, and India's response, dubbed Operation Sindoor. Turning to the United States, potential setbacks loom for STEM research at universities as the suspension of new visa interviews is anticipated to reduce the influx of Indian and Chinese students. In the world of sports, several athletes have successfully qualified for the upcoming U.S. Open Golf Championship. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz will visit the White House to meet with President Trump. Discussions will include the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, trade relations, and tariffs. This meeting aims to reassert Germany's role on the global stage. In Cologne, more than 20,000 residents were evacuated as authorities defused 3 WWY bombs. Registrations for new Tesla vehicles in Germany saw a significant drop, decreasing by over a third in May compared to the previous year, reportedly due to drivers avoiding Tesla vehicles. A Ryanair flight made an emergency landing in Memmingen, Germany, injuring 9 people due to severe storm-induced turbulence. Euthanasia advocate Dr. Florian Willett died in Germany after being investigated in Switzerland for assisting in a woman's suicide. United States. The U.S. continues to grapple with contentious immigration policies. President Trump's travel bans aimed at safeguarding the nation from terrorism and security threats have been revised. The initial version, criticized by human rights, first for targeting Muslim-majority countries and undermining equality, has evolved to exempt special immigrant visa applicants from Kabul, Afghanistan. However, visa restrictions still apply to citizens from 12 countries, and additional restrictions affect 7 others. On the global front, the U.S. blocked a UN Security Council resolution advocating for a ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S. then vetoed a subsequent Security Council demand for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Economically, the UK was granted an exemption from the 50% steel tariff imposed by the US. Nevertheless, a 25% duty remains in place until a new trade agreement between the two nations is established. United Kingdom. The UK is actively engaged in managing its international trade relationships, particularly with the United States. Despite securing an exemption from President Trump's 50% steel tariff, the UK is still subject to a 25% duty. This is due to the absence of a finalized trade agreement between the UK and the US, highlighting ongoing negotiations and the need for a formal trade framework. China. A recent speech by Chinese Harvard graduate Yorong Luana Jiang has sparked significant controversy and public discourse across China. Her statements are seen as a reflection of growing discontent with elite education and increasing frustration with class divisions within Chinese society. Mexico is seeing a potential shift in its Supreme Court as Hugo Aguilar, an indigenous lawyer from Oaxaca linked to the Morena Party, gains traction in the race for president of the court. Aguilar's campaign resonated with calls for indigenous representation in high government positions. Doubts linger, however, about his potential bias, with some indigenous groups questioning whether his loyalty lies with the Morena Party or his community, particularly given his involvement with contentious projects like the Maya Train. Australia is seeing calls for sexual assault reform from Brittany Higgins, who is urging the Albanese government to take sexual violence seriously and avoid a #MeToo backlash. Adding to diplomatic developments, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese plans to meet with China's Xi Jinping in Beijing this summer to address trade matters. Turning to global environmental concerns, an extensive marine heat wave is impacting nearly 40 million square kilometers of ocean in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. The World Meteorological Organization has linked this unprecedented event, covering an area 5 times the size of Australia, to the ongoing climate crisis, raising alarms about its potentially devastating effects on marine life and global weather systems. Venezuela has strongly condemned the U.S. government, labeling it as fascist following the reissuance of a travel ban by Donald Trump. The ban targets 12 countries, including Afghanistan, Iran, and Yemen. Somalia, another nation affected by the ban, announced that it would seek dialogue with Washington to resolve security issues that prompted its inclusion. Adding to the international reaction, Iranian Americans have expressed their deep disappointment at the reinstatement of the measure, drawing parallels to the policies of Trump's first term. In a separate legal development concerning Venezuela, a U.S. judge has ruled that Venezuelans deported from the United States to El Salvador under an obscure 18th century wartime law have the right to challenge their detention. This ruling ensures that they are afforded due process to contest both their deportation and confinement. Saudi Arabia is leveraging high-tech solutions, such as artificial intelligence, drones, and a network of cameras overseen from a central command center in Mecca, to safeguard nearly 1.5 million international Hajj pilgrims. This initiative responds to heightened concerns about pilgrim well-being, especially after more than 1,300 deaths occurred during last year's pilgrimage. Adding to their conservation efforts, Saudi Arabia has also secured 2 rare Arabian leopards for the National Zoo. Brazil mourns the passing of Nied Guidon, a 92-year-old archaeologist celebrated for uncovering numerous prehistoric cave paintings in the country's northeast region. Meanwhile, in New York, Brazilian artist Rosana Paulino is exhibiting her thought-provoking creations, blending forest imagery with ethnographic documentation. The term BRICS, encompassing Brazil, Russia, India, and China, was originally conceived in 2001 by Jim O'Neill, an economist formerly with Goldman Sachs, to spotlight the investment potential within these developing nations. France commemorated the 81st anniversary of D-Day, honoring sacrifices on its historic battlefields. 13 individuals are on trial for a racist act directed at Franco-Malian singer Aya Nakamura. The nation mourns Pierre Nora, a distinguished French scholar who passed at 93. Economically, AESC, Shanghai Envision Group's battery division began operations at its new Douai facility. Pakistan is considering establishing a sovereign Bitcoin reserve, planning to use surplus electricity to power the operation and draw in foreign tech investment. Experts have, however, warned of potential dangers associated with the plan. A Pakistani think tank has suggested China should spearhead Pakistan's shift to renewable energy, highlighting the economic benefits of solar energy over existing coal plants built with Chinese funds. Adding to diplomatic discussions, Pakistan's Prime Minister and the PPP leader have both praised former U.S. President Donald Trump for his work in reducing tensions with India, expressing their hopes that he will continue to promote talks between the two countries. El Salvador witnessed a landmark ruling as a former defense minister, and 2 retired colonels were convicted for the 1982 murders of 4 Dutch journalists during the Civil War, receiving 15-year prison sentences. Simultaneously, controversy arose as a human rights lawyer known for criticizing President Nayib Bukele was brought before a judge by the police, sparking demands for a public trial. The Philippines is strengthening its military capabilities with the procurement of 12 A-50 light attack jets from South Korea, a move intended to address growing concerns over the South China Sea. Despite enhancing the nation's air power, experts note that these jets do not fulfill the role of adaptable multi-role fighter aircraft. Shifting focus to France, the nation is urging the Philippines to ratify the UN Marine Resource Treaty, emphasizing that non-compliance may lead to exclusion from a key international conference. Simultaneously, China's embassy in the Philippines has cautioned the European Union against provoking trouble within the contested South China Sea region. Afghanistan, already struggling with internal conflict, faced further hardship as President Trump's travel ban drastically reduced opportunities for its citizens to seek refuge in the United States. This policy, encompassing Afghanistan and 11 other nations, drew immediate condemnation from Democrats, who viewed it as both discriminatory and strategically unsound. Iran was also heavily impacted by the travel ban. Iranian citizens faced significant obstacles in traveling to the U.S. for any reason, including family visits, education, or medical treatment. Critics argued that the ban unfairly targeted ordinary Iranians, further straining already tense relations between the two countries. Vanuatu has decided against revoking Andrew Tate's citizenship after a thorough government review found no discrepancies in his citizenship documents, which he obtained around the time of his arrest in Romania in 2022. Separately, a shark attack was reported. Indonesia recently saw several foreign nationals arrested in Bali on drug charges, including citizens of Australia, India, and the United States, all facing potential death sentences. Shifting focus to defense, Indonesia is contemplating acquiring Chinese J-10 fighter jets, a model allegedly involved in the downing of a French-made Rafale during the past India-Pakistan conflict. Canada mourns the passing of Marc Garneau, former astronaut and foreign minister, at 76. Canada contemplated retaliatory trade actions against the U.S. due to tariffs on Canadian metals. Intense wildfires in Manitoba and Saskatchewan caused significant smoke, affecting the Midwestern and Northeastern U.S. Transitioning to France, the nation's political landscape saw increased scrutiny of Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party. Allegations of misuse of European Parliament funds surfaced, potentially impacting the party's stand. President Macron announced new measures aimed at boosting the country's economy. These measures include tax reforms and investments in green technology. Across the Atlantic, in Brazil, debates intensified over environmental policies in the Amazon rainforest. International pressure mounted on the Brazilian government to curb deforestation. The administration responded by pledging increased enforcement efforts. Meanwhile, economic indicators showed a slight recovery. This recovery followed a period of instability. Shifting focus to Australia, the government unveiled a new national security strategy. The strategy prioritizes cybersecurity and regional partnerships. The move comes amid growing concerns about foreign interference. Australia also reported a surge in renewable energy production. This increase contributes to the country's climate goals. In Germany, discussions centered on the country's energy transition. the government faced pressure to accelerate the shift away from fossil fuels. Concerns about energy security arose due to geopolitical tensions. Germany's unemployment rate remained stable. It highlighted the resilience of the German economy. Hungary's controversial law restricting LGBTQ content now faces further scrutiny. A senior legal scholar at the European Court of Justice has issued an opinion stating that the law violates fundamental human rights. The opinion also cites infringements on freedom of expression by limiting the content available to minors. Arguments previously presented by the Hungarian government defending the law were refuted within the opinion. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has pledged unwavering support for Russia's war in Ukraine, promising to deepen relations. Kim and Russia agreed to dynamically expand cooperation. Meanwhile, the mother of a North Korean abductee is imploring the government to resolve the long-standing issue of North Korean abductions of foreign nationals. Malaysia is currently grappling with a sexual harassment suit against Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. This suit casts a shadow over his administration's integrity. Adding to the nation's concerns, the body found recently has been confirmed as that of British backpacker Jordan Johnson Doyle. Authorities report that Johnson Doyle died from a chest injury resulting from a fall. The United States is grappling with President Trump's travel ban, affecting a dozen countries with varying degrees of restrictions. The Senate is concurrently drafting a budget bill aimed at implementing Trump's agenda. Discussions with Iran regarding its nuclear program remain ongoing. President Trump is also focused on revitalizing U.S. manufacturing, despite the fact that a factory in Vietnam currently surpasses the production of jeans in the entire U.S. Moreover, proposed U.S. visa restrictions are causing international students to consider the UK as an alternative study destination. Military components are being supplied to Israel through Maersk ships, routed via Rotterdam, while U.S. policy restrains Netanyahu's regional ambitions but gives him autonomy regarding Palestinian affairs. Shifting to Europe, Microsoft has accused Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea of engaging in cyber espionage against European computer networks, prompting the tech giant to bolster its AI-driven cybersecurity defenses. The European Union is wary of potential tariff increases on steel and aluminum by other nations, fearing a resultant influx of inexpensive foreign steel into the EU market. This surge could negatively impact industries like home building, car manufacturing, and can production, particularly in Belgium. In Asia, Taiwan is providing aid to Guatemala, its sole diplomatic ally in Central America, in an effort to counter China's growing influence. Meanwhile, Google has partnered with Chile to construct a submarine fiber optic cable connecting South America to Asia and Oceania. Myanmar's traditional Chinlone ball sport is suffering from ongoing conflict and a scarcity of rattan. Turning to Thailand, a teachers group is protesting a state agency's collaboration with a beer company, claiming that it compromises educators' ethical standards. In a separate incident, a wild elephant created chaos in a Thai grocery store by consuming food. In Vietnam, citizens are increasingly opting to have fewer children after the removal of the country's two-child policy. Regarding Fiji, an inquiry has commenced into the capsizing of a vessel, and a removal notice has been issued, as stated by Minister Ro Filipe Chusoao. Cristiano Ronaldo played a key role in Portugal's Nations League victory, leading the team to the final with a 2-1 win over Germany. Portugal has publicly praised Cristiano Ronaldo for his performance in the Nations League. In the Dominican Republic, U.S. Marshals have apprehended a Dominican man wanted for the murder of 4 people, including 2 children, in New York the previous year. While Madrid, in Spain, lacks a coastline, it celebrates its historical maritime ties through museums, fountains, and the Estanque Grand in Retiro Park. In Tonga, a police constable has been arrested for drug possession, underscoring the pervasiveness of drug-related issues in the region. Internal tensions have surfaced within Papua New Guinea's leading anti-corruption organization. Nauru and the metals company have revised their agreement concerning deep-sea mining operations. Lastly, Egypt has reaffirmed its sovereignty over a well-known monastery within its borders. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.